obviously, like, can you code or not, right? And so these two things are pretty key. All right, so I wanted to go through a few questions and kind of give you examples on what kind of questions may come up. There's plenty of other questions out there. Just go search for it on the web. Most of our questions are public, but again, knowing the answer to a question is just gets you part of the way there. It's how well you answered, why you picked the solution you picked, right? So for example, okay, let's take this question, right? It's an array of size n, and every number is between 1 and n. Determine how many duplicates are there. Right? Simple. So the first thing you want to do is ask the interviewer, or maybe even tell the interviewer, not even ask, like, here's the things I'm going to do. Because once you ask, like say for example, if you ask the interviewer, can I destroy or modify the array? If they say no, suddenly your choices are limited, right? But if you come out and say, hey, I'm going to approach this problem by modifying the array, is that, you don't have to say that's okay, just state it as a statement. That's going to give you an easy way out. If the interviewer is, really looking for a way not to do it, then he'll say, or she will say, no, I don't want you to change the array. Right? But my suggestion is to get clarity or state how you understand the problem. Find the corner cases, right? The interviewer might tell you, yeah, you don't have to worry about it. I'll always make sure there's something in the array that's not going to be empty. Or it's always going to be integers. You don't have to type check. So all of these things, now suddenly you have eliminated corner cases, down checks, and things like that, where you're focusing on solving the problem now. Right? So, best way to solve that now. All right, so here's one of the solutions. What do you think is wrong with the solution? 1%. Complexity, right? So this is a solution you write if you don't know any of the solution, right? This is the worst case scenario solution. It's going through every single integer twice, the n squared complexity. You can probably make it a lot simpler. But if you're running out of time, you can't think of anything smarter, this is what you write out. You should get partial error. All right. Let's look at another one. Same problem, different solution. What do you think the problem is here? I mean, I think it's a reasonable solution. Right. It's definitely, not as complex as the previous one. But do you know what arrays.fill complexity is? It's a library function, it's a black box to you. And if you use that function, you better know what it does, or at least have an idea, right? And if you gave me the solution, my next question would have been, what's the complexity of array.fill? So, know the language, know the library functions, make sure you come prepared. Don't pick the language based on the interviewer, pick the language based on what you know. If you know Java the best, pick Java. If you know Python the best, pick Python. At Facebook, interviews are never language specific. We're language agnostic. You can code in any language in one second. I had people come in and both coded Erlang once. That's the strangest language I think. And I've never coded in Erlang, but honestly, from an engineer to an engineer, if you don't even understand a language, you can at least read it. And if there's, if you don't understand a structure, you can always ask the person writing it and say, hey, what does this mean? How does this work? And that will give me a lot more signal because this person understands how to explain this to me, right? So don't worry about what language you pick, just make sure you're really good at it. And you can always sit there, after you finish your problem, you can discuss what are better solutions, or if you had time, or if you had, a better idea of what other library functions you can use, what are the pitfalls of using them, things like that. So for example, this is another solution. Very similar, but what is it doing? One, maybe just go through the documentation and make sure you know, hey, is it a quick sort, is it a merge sort, whatever it is. Maybe you can specify a sort. And when you talk to the interviewer, you can say, well, if I had to write it, I would write a quick sort, and the complexity of quick sort is log n, and that's what it is. So my whole solution is not that complex. Right. So going back to this, like if you're stuck, take time, think out loud, see what's wrong with the problem, where you can make a solution better, where you can focus your attention. All right, let's look at another question, right? How can you find out if there's a loop in a very long list? I didn't specify what kind of list, right? So what would your first question be? All right, well, I gave this loop. So, this kind of this is probably a terrible solution for that question. Because what it's doing is it's only checking if it's a full loop. Like, is the last pointer pointing to the first one, that's it. I never asked any clarifying questions. I just wrote this up. That's probably going to be a bad idea. Right? You want to ask clarifying questions as much as you can. Ask, what the interviewer really wanted to get out of it. And my question would be, is it a single unit list? Will there only be full loops, or can it loop anywhere? And can I modify the nodes? Or is it, can I have a previous pointer or something, which will make it a lot easier to trace, and they'll have different solutions. All right, so when I actually came up with, when I borrowed these slides from a coworker of mine, he had this solution up. And immediately I saw that and I went, does that really work? It looks like a valid solution, but it's not really. So I have to go ahead and fix it. So here's what I changed. I changed check to current, and then it was going to throw a syntax error, so I returned 0. The solution is probably a pretty good one. It covers most of the edge cases. If start is null and things like that, it doesn't. But other than that, it does cover most of the edge cases, right? And I would accept this. But what I would suggest is you guys use the whiteboard to your advantage. Draw. What I notice a lot of interns or a lot of interviewers don't do is they don't write test cases. What are the corner test cases that you would normally write unit tests for? I urge you to do that. On a corner of the whiteboard, just draw all the different types of inputs there can be, and then you just walk through your solution and make sure you cover everything. I think that's probably the most important thing you can do. This was probably the most optimal solution for this. This is a slow, fast solution, and what it does is it sends one pointer going through the inputs really fast, and the other one really slow. And the second, the fast pointer laps the slow pointer. You have your answer. This is just an online solution, but we don't expect everyone to come up with this. This is something you don't come up with an interview. I'm just showing you this as an example of this person actually did research on this problem and taking up this solution. We expect you to come up with a previous one. We expect you to give us all the edge cases we could, figure out what works, what doesn't. Give us, your complexity of the solution and things like that. All right. Final question. The idea here is I want you to, given a number n, I want you to print numbers in sequential order as it spirals inward, right? This is a very common question. I've asked this before, and people mess this up all the time. And the main reason for this is they don't sit down and think through it. There's many ways to write a solution for this. My preferred method is to do it recursively. So you do the outside first, and then you call the function again, do the inside, keep going until you finish. People always mess up on corner cases, like if n is 1, then they don't know what to do, or if n is 2. Okay? Um, but what it comes down to is when the interviewer asks you a question, like, do you know everything you need to know to answer that question? That's what you need to ask yourself. Can you draw it up? Usually, if you draw up a solution, you will get a response back from the interviewer. You know, they'll either look happy or, they'll tell you pretty much, is this the right solution or not? You should use that to your advantage. It's a lot harder to do on a phone screen, but in person, make sure you take that advantage. Write things on the board, look at them, read their body language, get an idea of, are you headed in the right direction or not? At least you can sense that you're getting closer or farther away. If you're doing it wrong, it's probably not the right idea. Give different solutions. Tell the interviewer if you want me to do this recursively or descriptively, or if you want to know one solution, take it and tell them this is what you're going to do. The more you can explain the solution to the interviewer, the better off it'll be, because they'll probably give you hints, they'll probably help you through the interview. And after that, after you put up a solution, tell them what you think can improve the solution. Tell them where you think the solution is lacking. So all of these will help you, help the interviewer get a better signal of how well you understand the problem. Right? And I put this up here last night, but the reason I have this slide is because people are too hasty usually. They'll write up something really quickly, and they kind of, immediately say, yes, this is my final answer, it's done, it's perfect. I know it works. And it's usually, you want to take your time after you finish the solution to go through double, triple check to make sure your solution works. Because a lot of interviewees fail out of our interview process because they didn't really think through the solution properly. They either give us an unoptimized solution or they missed really basic checks. Or, they have null pointer exceptions for no reason, things like that. Infinite use. All of these things will come by you if you don't really think about the solution. And honestly, write a lot of code, right? You need to train for this. It's definitely something that you cannot just sit in a textbook, learn, memorize the algorithms, memorize your formulas and things like that, and have it applied. The more experience you have, the probably easier an interview will get. I would recommend getting a friend and having them ask you interview questions and seeing if you can do it. And it's kind of out of order, but when you're doing phone screens, also make sure you're, especially the ones on Skype, make sure you're in a quiet room, internet connection, headphones on, because a lot of times it's really hard to understand the other person, especially just when you're not looking at the face, and you're just listening to the face. It's really hard to understand on both sides. And if there's a misunderstanding, it just hurts you more than anything else. Okay? But during the interview, we'll ask very common questions like, "Hey, why did you pick Facebook?" Or "Why did you pick? Why did you decide to go into computer science?" Or "Why did you work on this one project for your academic work?" And be sure you know how to answer those. Be sure you understand your project pretty well. If you're working in a team and someone asks you specifics, and we ask you specifics about a project, and you don't know them, that's probably the worst thing you can do. Because we'll immediately know you didn't, actually put that much work into your project. But, like I said, don't use a text editor. Put a time limit on yourself. Give yourself 10, 15 minutes to solve a problem. Because it is going to take you longer when you're under pressure. What you can do in 10 minutes at home is probably going to take you 20 minutes in an interview. And we love people who participate in coding competitions, Code Jam, ACM programming contests, things like that. We go after these people all the time, and this is just going to help you. And it's going to actually probably improve your interviewing skills overall. You guys hear me in the back now? Alright, good. Like I said earlier, we don't ask puzzles. We don't ask brain teasers. We don't ask any of these things. We ask you straight questions that, like, I usually ask questions that I have encountered in the past, like, month of my job. You know, something that I'm trying to solve, I usually, like, or I've just figured out, I'll usually ask that as an interview question. You know, sometimes I even get a solution that I couldn't think of out of an interview, which is also cool. But it's usually very practical things. I simplify them, but I ask them. And, you know, be truthful on your resume. Don't lie. Don't make up stuff. Know everything that's on there. Like if you say you know Java, make sure you know Java. Make sure if you say you're an expert in Java, I guarantee you, like the interviewer will ask you a very corner case question like, why does a Java compiler do it? You know, how does it implement its stacks, right? Like how does it function stacks? Things like that. And ask questions. If you're stuck on something, if you don't understand something, like I said, either ask questions or give clarifying statements saying, I'm planning on doing this instead of, this is how I'm planning on solving the problem. Yeah, Facebook, like interviewers get pretty tough, so coming up with the right solution first is probably the best bet. It's the most optimized solution. You can't think of any. You can always come up with a quick solution, give it to the interviewer, don't put it up, and then say, here's how I would do it, but I'm going to try to optimize it now. At least it will give you partial credit. And, we might ask you to implement very common functions. Like I said, I ask questions that I face in every life. So, like, hey, can you do a substring query, or can you do implement binary tree printing, or things like that, which are very common, but it gives us an idea of how a person codes. Okay? And this is kind of personal to me, but I always like it when people ask me questions about how I work, what I do at work, where I enjoy things. You can learn so much about a company by just asking the person how they do their job, where is their day-to-day working life, what is their work-life balance, all of these things. It will also show them that you're passionate about the job. It's something you want to do. It's something you're looking at this company as one, right? So you want to leave the interview with them feeling that you want this job more than anything. So ask them questions. Anyway, I didn't have too many more slides, but I'm here to take questions from you guys. So if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'm happy to answer. And Nitin's up here too. Let me check. Yeah, just die. Any questions? No? Yeah.
What's the favorite part about your job?
So I actually, so I used to work in California. I've worked at Facebook for about 5.5 years now. And I used to work in and I recently moved to London about a year ago. And so my favorite part of my job is to actually build a London office. I get to do, it's pretty much like a startup. And I'm there to build a team, and that's what I like. Go ahead. Question over there. Yeah.
Do you recruit for some specific roles like data science, etc. from undergrad college?
Not from undergrad. So, like, if you wanted to do, so we usually try to recruit generalists. We believe in generalists because we encourage engineers to move around Like for example, like one area to think of is machine learning or compilers, static analysis. We recently acquired a company that does pure static analysis, and all those guys are PhDs in that field. So we would expect them to come in and do static analysis, but usually when we hire people, we hire them as general engineer.
So if you have a research internship in that particular field, would you hire them?
We would probably interview as generalists, most likely. But our interviews don't change. So, like, it's probably in your best interest. Like, you can, like, the way our process works is once you get hired, you start in this 6-week program called Bootcamp, and you know, like, get used to our code base, you get used to our stack, you get used to how we work, and then the last 2 weeks of that program, you get to choose your team. So you kind of have your free choice of what team you want to end up in, and you could possibly pick data sciences, or data mining, or whatever. So it's very flexible. We don't, you know, like I said, we don't really care about the language. We don't really care about the degrees and things like that usually. And we, like, some of the top engineers don't even have a bachelor's degree at Facebook, and including Carlos, by the way. Yeah, so you come in, you do the program, you get used to it, and you pick, like, let's say I'm a front-end guy. I only want to do JavaScript, I only want to do CSS, I want to do design. That's all you want to do. You can go to a front-end team. If you want to do C++, obviously, like, if you want to do kernel hacking or something very specific, you better have good experience in that area, because we're pretty much at the cutting edge of that field. So if you don't really know what you're doing, you're not going to be successful on that team. So as long as we think you'll be successful on that team, we'll let you work there.
And just to add to that, bootcamp is the time when, you know, we kind of decide on these things, depending upon how you've done during your training and what kind of requirement we're looking for during that point of time. And like the teams have their requirements in terms of how many engineers they would need, and that's when these decisions are made in terms of what team you can join, which particular area.
In the interview, does this what skills you are, like you said you're designing or C++, like does this matter? I'm a very amateur guy, so my question will be amateur. I'm Sophie.
Can you clarify that a little more?
Like you said, if you want to go to design, you're good in design, C++, CSS, JavaScript, and everything.
Yeah.
And the other part is C++, both are done very distinct thing, right?
Right.
In terms of coding.
Yeah.
So when you go for interview, you ask pertaining to that field, or you can ask an overall.
So usually, hopefully you would have some experience on your CV or resume that says, I am a front-end designer. And what we try to do is we try to tailor the interview to the person. So if you're a kernel programmer, or, you know, like a C++ programmer or static analysis person, we'll have static analysis guys interview you. So we do have that sort of matching. So you won't get an interview from like a C++ guy when you're only doing front-end now. Sure. All right, let's see if this works. Okay. Yeah.
So what are the kind of challenges that you face in your day-to-day work that you have with designing the team?
The question was, what kind of challenges I face? Let's see, I can follow that up with a couple stories. So about, well, this is a little old story. About 2 years ago, Facebook decided that we wanted to, well, we started 4 years ago. 2 years ago, we decided to create an interpreter and run our entire site, which is run in PHP, by the way, in C++. So what we actually do currently, what we did 2 years ago is we took PHP code, translated it to C++, compiled it into one giant binary, and deployed it to all of our servers. And that was the web server. We got rid of Apache, we got rid of PHP. This project is called HipHop. It's open source. Play with it. And my job was to, I was an engineer back then, and my job was to take you wanted to change a website that's PHP, and it's like, let's say, 2,000 PHP files, and only one file changed, you just copy that one file over, you restart the Apache server, and it's done. But now, since you compile this, I have to take this binary and send it to all web servers. This binary was 1.5 gigabytes. And at that point, we had 30,000 of servers. So my job was to get this 1.5 gigabyte binary to 10,000 servers. And that was the challenge I was faced with. And pretty much, if I didn't do it, the site wouldn't get converted to hip-hop. This is when we brainstormed with the help of a colleague, with the help of there's in general, you just toss questions out there, people are going to respond. Internally, we have a lot of communication going on, so you can ask a lot of questions to people, and someone started suggesting ideas, and eventually we came down to implementing this using BitTorrent. Our entire deployment system now BitTorrents itself across our data center. And it was something I had to write up. So it's a challenge, but again, you have a lot of help. You have a lot of smart people on your team. It's a lot of fun. More recently, one of my challenges was to so we have a system called Gatekeeper. What that does is it gates people in and out of features. So for example, if you notice, we don't roll out things like timeline to everyone all at once. We roll it out very slowly. And the way we do this is through tooling. So Gatekeeper manages the user to feature, so it knows every single user what features they have and what features it doesn't. So you can say, hey, I have this user X, I want this feature A. Is this guy have it or not? And based on that, in your code, you make a decision to either show it or not. And this system is, my team works on the system right now, and my job was to architect it so that it can scale to our user base. And it does about 1 billion requests a second to that system. There's a lot of challenges, mainly due to our size, that I think the hardest part about my job is that I can't go to a web search like Google and say, here's my problem, someone answer this for me. It just does not work. You can get hints from your competitors, but they're not going to give it up either, right? And it's just a challenging environment. It's a different sort of challenge, and this is kind of why I think 2 years ago I got offered a co-founding position at a pretty popular startup now. But they're like, hey, come start a company with us. And this is when I was working on the BitTorrent stuff, and I thought about it. And if I went to that startup, all I would be doing is the same thing I had done previously at my startup, which is setting up monitoring for my servers, making sure the servers work properly, configuration-wise and things like that. And all of these open source tools that you download, install, configure, and things like that. It's the same thing over and over again. It's nothing brand new. And what Facebook allows me to do is give me challenges that no one has ever faced before. And sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, but when you succeed, it's pretty cool. Hopefully that answers your question. I like to talk a lot. Yeah.
Have you dedicated information security, network security?
We have a lot of security guys. So I can go through our teams. So one type of security is physical security. So actual physical access to our machines, our campuses, all of that stuff, lockdown, how our badging system works, how our guest system works, all of that, right? The second type of security team is our product security team. So their main job is to protect our product, which is our website. To make sure that no one can hack it, no one can, do things to it. And we have teams that do both, physical and product security at the same time. For example, we have teams that will try to hack into our system and our campuses. One of the teams, their main job is to like break into the campus, like their job is to install a laptop on our network and go undetected, and find out how many days until someone from the security team, which they work for too, notices that someone broke in. So we have those types of teams. We have like, it's called site integrity, so they're trying to protect the integrity of the website, so like blocking spammy users, blocking, people from getting phished, so this is a big deal. Like, you might have gotten messages like, hey, I'm your friend, I'm stuck in, South Africa, I need, some money wired to me, or I'm stuck in Nigeria, or whatever, right? And they'll be like, oh, can you go to the best restaurant and wire it to this location? And it's a scam. And, like, smart people like you and me probably won't fall for it, but when you have 1 billion users, there's going to be someone who's dumb enough to say, oh, I don't know this person, but, yes, I'll help you. And it's amazing how many people fall for this. And even today, like, I see, posts from my friends that say, hey, Facebook doesn't care about your privacy, can you go click this and uncheck these 3 things, and it will prevent my updates from being public. Which is completely not true, by the way. It does not do what it says it does. But even my own aunt, who I think is pretty smart, she works at Stanford in a medical lab, posted the same thing. And I had to explain to her, like, you're not understanding the problem. Like, this was a joke posted by someone, and you're just copying and pasting it. And, like, things like that, you want to protect the users, just it affects the credibility of your site. So we have a huge team that does a lot of machine learning. At 1 billion users, you cannot have this manual process. When people upload pornography, when people try to, attack children, or who try to lure children, this is a big thing now. We have a lot of machine learning algorithms that go through and try to detect this to protect our users. It's a very sophisticated system, and a lot of things to work on. And fortunately, that team works out of London. So
do undergrads get hired after boot camp?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. So we had 3 people from our last year's undergrad hiring end up on that team. And they're all 3 of them are very successful. So their job is pretty much to play cat and mouse game against the bad guys. And it's if you like reactive work, if you like work where you're constantly changing projects, you're constantly doing different things every day, that's the work for you. If you're a person who needs a very consistent roadmap, like I know what I'm going to be working on for the next 2 months, that is probably not the job for you, because those guys have spikes of 3 days straight of working, and then they'll party. Because when there's an attack going on, you cannot leave your computer. These guys are fighting 24 hours a day. And that's why there's a team in London specifically to cover the nighttime shift during when California is sleeping. Yeah. So it's a pretty big team. It's about 40 people, I think. And there's about 8 people in London working on that team. You guys have any questions for Ethan?
How are the 2 cultures different, working in India and outside?
So we do not have an engineering office in India. We do have other departments in India, but all our engineering offices are either in the UK or in the US. So we have 4 engineering offices worldwide: California, Menlo Park, Seattle, in Washington, New York City, and London. That's all. We have a few remote engineers working out of their houses in the US or in Europe, but we do not have any engineers in India. So yeah, we only hire for the US or London. But yeah, I can talk about the culture between London and US, but that's about it. I mean, it's being on the main campus is really difficult. We have this really, so what we did is we bought Sun Microsystems' old campus, and we kind of converted it into a mini town. There's 2 cafeterias and about 7 different food places on campus, including like a dedicated ice and sweet shop, a dedicated coffee shop, a Mexican restaurant, burger joint, barbecue, like everything you can think of is there. There's even like a barber shop, a bank, and I'm forgetting something, a bike shop, and all these things inside the campus. And the perks are just amazing on the main campus. Like, it's next to nothing. Like, I can't even, like, I work in London, so I don't get any of those benefits, but it's always fun to go back and just see, like, it's almost like being in a Disneyland or something. It's really different. So the idea was that Zuckerberg really wanted engineering. This is a very engineering-driven company. Engineers are like first-class citizens. You can probably tell you that more than me, but it's so like even Zuckerberg's an engineer himself. So the way engineering works is like engineers come up with the ideas, engineers implement those ideas, and they go out and do it. And Zuck's idea was to not let engineers trouble themselves outside of work. Like everything else will be taken care of for you. You just need to worry about doing your work. So all the food is free. All the restaurants. Actually, 2 restaurants are paid for, the Japanese one and the Mexican one, but they're subsidized. But other than that, all the other restaurants are free. Yeah, like I don't even pay for laundry. Like the laundry is taken care of, dry cleaning is taken care of, and your transportation is taken care of. Everything is taken care of. You just have to worry about doing work. How busy am I at work? Really depends on the day. I can tell you 2 things. I'll tell you my version of it, because I do a lot more building up the site, hiring, recruiting, doing tech talks, traveling a lot. But a typical engineer probably won't do as much. So I'll give you both versions. So my day usually depends. So being in London, I have to video conference with California a lot, so I usually tend to stay later. So I won't come in to work till about 10:30, 11 a.m., and then I'll stay till about 7 p.m., 8 p.m. But engineering has no hours, so you can really come in anytime you want, leave anytime you want. What we measure on is your impact. And what I mean by impact is, did you ship what you said you would? Is your project having better impact than we expected it to, than you would have avoided? And it's not just did you finish your work, right? Like, that's not where it ends. It's how well did you, anticipate this project to do? How well did you plan? How well did you execute it? How well did it itself execute? A lot of it depends on your adoption of your tools. Like, I write tools, and if they're not adopted, then that means I'm not doing a good job. Me writing the tool, completing the tool, is not my job. My job is to make sure the tool works and it does what it says it does, or even better. So a lot of my work is like figuring out how the tool can be better. So you're constantly thinking about it. I have the best ideas when I'm sitting at home or in a shower or playing video games or whatever. I subconsciously ideas just come to me oh, this is a great idea, let's go try it out. So to me, I'm always kind of working, but in terms of hours, I try to keep very normal hours. If you saw my profile picture, I have a kid, so I try to go home, have dinner, things like that. So my work hours are not that long. But to be honest, it really depends on the person. I know engineers in California who stay at work mainly because of free food, because then they don't have to go make food for themselves. But we have everything you possibly need, right? We have probably about a bar every 200 feet on campus. So there's plenty of alcohol, there's plenty of video games, there's plenty of things to keep you entertained. But again, when it comes down to it, if you don't do your work, it's going to be hard.
How does it differ for a platform computer science and some other stream?
Okay, how does it differ for computer science versus not? So I had an intern who, his master's degree was in mathematics.
Can you
but he could pass the coding interview. And he actually did really well on his internship, and then he did really well at his full-time job after he got it. So it really doesn't matter. It's like your passion on how much you code, how well can you answer the questions I just showed you, for example, and like how much you want the job, how well you communicate to the interviewer.
In campus placement, do you prefer to get hired from design?
I would let Nathan answer that. Do you prefer computer science?
I wouldn't say we prefer, but yeah, like Girish mentioned, it's more about coding than anything else. So, like I said, you don't even need to really know how to code. That's pretty much. Yeah, but when we go to campus, do we allow other students on campus to sit for the test? We might not do that because it's too much for us to handle. So we on campus we prefer students only from IT, computer science, and EC to take part in the interview. But off campus, we're okay if somebody's interested. They can always apply through referrals or through directly reaching out to the recruiter.
And when you're applying, again, like your resume has to stand out, right? So work on research projects. Do things that normally people don't do, and it's going to pay off. Not just for, Facebook, like industry-wide. I've been hiring for Yahoo, I've been hiring for other places, and it's the same thing. So open source will always help. How much your grades matter? I probably wouldn't be working here if grades matter. I'm terrible at school. Like, I did not, in my university, I did not go to most of my classes. So it really depends on how well you interview, how well you work.
Actually, it was like while employing, while taking a campus placement, what is the criteria? Grades really matter, right? During
So campus placements, I don't know. So I right out of college, I did not join Facebook, so I don't really have the campus experience.
No, they don't.
I don't remember checking for grades.
So it's a very simple process. We like you mentioned, we have a recruiter pre-screening the resume. It's more about like if some resume is standing out versus the other. But we don't even shortlist resumes that way. We come to the campus, we run the coding test. Anybody who clears the test to a point where we want like a particular score and above goes through the next round of reviews. And if we feel that somebody is on a borderline on that test, we still review the code so that in case if the code is good and we can take that person forward, we still do that. So we don't even look at the, to be honest, we don't even look at the grade on the stage. It's open for all. Anybody who's from that stream, like an IT, computer science or EC, can come in, write the test, and depending upon the score, we move forward.
See him apply for the internship?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Android and iOS. Oh, mobile question. Not that much. Like I said earlier, if you have a specific area that you have experience in, what we'll do is we'll have the interviewers will also be experienced in that area. So if you send your CV and it says, hey, I've done Android before, I've done an internship in Android, we're most likely going to have you get interviewed by an Android person. Because it just makes more sense because we can, it's to us, it's about how well we can gather your signal that you're fit for patient or not, right? And that's what we're trying to determine. And if we can get more signal out of the interview, we will. And we'll do everything we can to do that.
The initial couple of rounds are generic for everybody, so we do not have like a different interview question for somebody who's interested to join our mobile teams for Android or iOS. Initially, it's the same. Post the first couple of rounds, which will be phone screens. When you come to an on-site stage where you meet interviewers face to face, and you have that passion to join a particular technology or a particular team and as such, that's when, like they said, you'll have interviewers coming and talking about that. That's how it is. But initially, the first couple of screening levels is same for everyone.
Again, honestly, it doesn't really matter because we really love St. Louis, and we encourage people in the company to move. So after about a year of working for Facebook, or a year and a half, what we do is we have multiple programs that help engineers move around the company. One of the programs is called Hackathon. So the idea is after about a year or a year and a half, you work on a completely different team. So like if you're working on mobile, then we would encourage you to go work on either front end or maybe like C++ or whatever. Something that you think you'll be passionate about, but it's a new area for you. And then you go work on this team for a month on a month-long, very specific project. And then you finish that project, and then you can decide if I'm going to stay on that team because I like it so much, or I come back. And we usually have about a 50% rate where the people stay on and work for that team. So we have engineers moving across the company. So I've moved teams, I think, 4 times now out of my 5.5 years. So 4 different teams. And it's very common to do different things. Because again, for us, it's our hiring process, like if you can meet our engineering bar, you can work in any team, really. Obviously, like you wouldn't want to work with others, it's not your area, but you can pretty much work anywhere else. And then for us, it's more beneficial to keep people passionate about what they work on, so you work on different things. So tend to be more passionate about it. All right, guys, I'm going to be up here. If you have any more questions, come see me. Or thanks for coming. Hope it was informational. And hope to see you at the interview.